Sports Digital Network. So glad everybody can be with us this evening. Everybody's like, oh, they want to talk draft, and we prepped for it for weeks, Kevin, and it came and went. It was 3 long days. I was in front of the TV watching the whole madness, and it was on what? It was on like 3, 4 channels, and I started getting the numbers. 13 million people watched the draft. I mean, the biggest non-event on the NFL calendar.
Yeah, that tells me 13 million people aren't getting badgered to do stuff around the house. They got a lot of free time. Is that 13 million single people? Is there married people doing any of these watchings? No, it was a lot of TV. It was a lot of information, but it was good. All in all, it was good.
Yeah, and you know it's NBA playoff time, and you get the baseball season kind of kicking in full gear. So, there's a lot to watch around on your TV dial. I know you got your eye on the Flyers too, as NHL playoffs are going right now, and but football is America's obsession. I was on another show earlier today, and I was just telling the host that people can't get enough of it, Kevin. And is it gambling? Is it fantasy football? I mean, what is it, and why can't people get enough of the National Football League?
All in all, I'm a huge sports fan, all sports. The NFL is so attractive, I think, to people who, aren't like watching every day like most of us, is because their team plays once a week. They can sit there, they put all their eggs in one basket once a week, and they can move on to their other 6 days of the week. While the other sports, you're playing almost every day. So I think NFL breeds that kind of like, that fandom where you can just invest in one day and then you can go about your life.
Right, and I think a big thing, Kevin, is a lot of us go to universities and schools, and they do a great job in terms of marketing their players coming from college, maybe even a local high school level, all the way to National Football League. And you saw a lot of that during the draft. We're going to get a report from Duncan later on. He was boots on the ground there in Pittsburgh. There were 900,000 people out there, Kevin, and you wonder, was it there for the booze, the Permani food? I mean, what were these people out there for, or are they really paying attention?
The Permani's good, man. I'm not going to lie. Get myself a king sandwich, king salad. You know what? I'm eating a salad, but you know what's on it? French fries. Pittsburgh's got it right. It's a spectacle to be around. It's like any other Palooza or Coachella. It's just one for sports people. So, yeah, that's a lot of people, man. I'm too old to be around that many people. I'll tell you that much.
Yes, and getting in terms of the actual players selected, obviously we're talking about a 3-day process. Thursday was round one. They had round 2 and 3 on Friday, and then 4 through 7 on Saturday. So it was, like you said, you plant your butt in front of that TV and you're just watching all the festivities. I know a football guy like me, I got all my friends and family uh, hit me up via text or call me saying, all right, who is this guy, Lloyd? Tell me about him. I had to be their local Mel Kiper, but not even I knew all the players, and there was 257 players selected. Started obviously with Fernando Mendoza from Indiana. He goes to the Raiders at number one, and then Mr. 257, Mr. Relevant 2026 was linebacker Red Murdoch from the University of Buffalo. Uh, what are you thinking in terms of the draft? First look, and we'll start with the first round. In that first round, Kevin, there were 6 offensive tackles taken, kind of like we thought. 5 receivers, which seemed to be, the glamour position. It just seemed to be receivers taken over and over throughout there. And there was a ton of Ohio State, just like we thought. 4 players in the first 11 selected.
Yeah, it's kind of how we thought it was going to go for the most part. There were some reaches, that's for sure. And I don't know if I want to say, there were surprises, definitely. There were some teams that did a lot better than I thought they were going to before we went into the draft. But there's a lot of teams that did some things I scratched my head about. Kansas City, the Rams. It's just like, what's going on? So there were some surprises in there. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and that's a good term, head scratchers, because Lloyd Vance doesn't give grades right after the draft. I mean, we talked about this last week. 50% of these guys are going to be out of the league in 4 years, and those snap judgments like, oh, this guy's going to be a Pro Bowl player next year. No, you just got to wait and see how everything turns out, and it may be an undrafted free agent guy that jumps from the pack, and he's the latest star in the National Football League, but in terms of head scratchers, immediately, Kevin, when you said that, I had to think of the Los Angeles Rams. You said it, and I texted you right after this happened. You said somebody is going to reach for this guy, and you said a dumb decision. So it was the LA Rams. They went for Ty Simpson to Alabama, number 13 overall, to the Rams. Obviously, to me, I thought the Rams should be in win now mode. They could have used guys all along their defense, their offensive line, and as I was saying, there was receivers galore out there. But they decided to go Ty Simpson, and the crazy thing is Matthew Stafford is getting ready to sign an extension there.
First of all, the extension should be year by year, but it's not my money, not my team, I don't care. That being said, the Ty Simpson, and we brought it up last week. You actually, I think, posed a question about would McVay do that? And, we kind of kicked it back and forth. I was like, yeah, McVay's that boy genius kind of guy. It's like, oh, I can turn any guy into, that thing. And sure enough, damn if he didn't do it. He took Ty Simpson. And you and I are texting each other. It's like, there it is. All right, good enough. No, it was a horrible pick, to be honest. I mean, you were, what were they, like 4 points from going to the Super Bowl, something like that? And you're that close, and Stafford's your guy next year, and you're going to sit there and draft somebody at, pick 13? You could have used something else to help you next year. That just baffled me, to be honest.
Right, and the Rams, as I was saying, Les Snead, the general manager there, McVay, I thought they'd be in win now mode. They got Durant, McDuffie, they got Watson coming over, the two DBs from Kansas City. They had Fisk, they had Verse on that defense, and to me, they need a couple pieces because they were in that NFC Championship game, and I didn't think it'd take much. And with an older quarterback, why not get him some weapons? So as you said, head scratcher for them, but luxury pick, and we'll see if that works out. What did you think in terms of Ohio State? And some of the guys from Ohio State, uh, they went in division. The Philadelphia Eagles better be watching their back, man, because you had Arvell Reese go number 5 to the New York Giants. You had Sonny Styles go number 7 to the Washington Commanders, and then you had the guy we've been talking about over and over again, Caleb Downs, went number 11 to the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, the Arvell Reese pick, he should have been picked number 2, in my opinion. I think the Jets got a quality player in Bailey, but I think Reese was that much better than Bailey. So for the fact that Giants, who maybe did not need that position at that point with what they have, it's like, we're not letting this guy go by, The Dallas Cowboys, on the other hand, going to get Caleb Downs, that's going to hurt you for a decade. That's the one that's going to be a problem. And it comes to a point where it's just like Ohio State, they might not win a national title, but man, they produce NFL players.
They do. And the thing is that, the Big Ten is now, it's kind of, the worm is kind of turned in terms of where the teams are going for talent. So the Big Ten had 10 guys selected in the first round. SEC had 7. But they're going, there's a few ACC guys sprinkled in there. And then what we had talked about too, Notre Dame, they had 2 running backs taken in the first round, and everybody's talking about obviously Jeremiah Love. We all had that man crush on him. Well, the Cardinals took him number 3, and that was like, wow. I guess they thought that Tennessee was going to jump up and get him at number 4, so they had to get in front of him. So now Jeremiah Love, he's going to try to not be the next Trent Richardson or some of these other backs selected in the top 5 that just did not do very well. But what did you think about him going there? And then his teammate, Caden Price, he went with the number 32 pick. He went to the Seattle Seahawks. So you saw 2 running backs go, both of them from Notre Dame in the first round.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am not a fan of a running back, especially in the top 15 of draft picks. I just think it's a high draft pick to waste on a running back. That being said, Arizona, I don't think that was their most pressing need, to get a running back. But at the same time, I'm just glad Washington didn't get him on as a Philadelphia Eagle, guy. I'm glad that he didn't get him. But I tell you, the better pick was Price going to Seattle. You lost Kenneth Walker already. You have Charbonnet, who's injury prone, and they went out and got Price. I thought that was a good draft pick.
Yes, and Jadarian Price, who went 32 Seahawks. That was a position of need because they're not sure about Charbonnet, and he's going to come in there, and he's going to be a guy who they're going to be able to use him day one. And I as you said, you got to be careful where you take these backs because too often we've seen these backs get taken very high, and then they just do not live up to expectations because it was just crazy how that happens around the league and over and over. Yeah, you see it. Okay, Saquon Barkley, pretty good career, but you look at backs taken in the top five. I saw this today. We'll kind of look at this. In 2000, Jamal Lewis went to the Baltimore Ravens. He did help them win the Super Bowl. 2001, Tomlinson, he was taken top five. 2005, you saw three backs go in the first five picks. Ronnie Brown, Cadillac Williams, Cedric Benson, R.I.P. He passed away, but no, his career was not what it was. 2006, we all thought Reggie Bush he was going to be the guy. I mean, he did help the Saints for a little bit. 2008, this guy, I thought he was going to be the man. Darren McFadden. Yeah, he went to the Raiders, didn't do much. 2012 is the guy I talked about, Trent Richardson from Alabama. Then you had Zeke Elliott in 2016, who had a good career with Dallas for a little bit, and then he got fat and just wasn't the guy. How about Leonard Fournette in 2017? A guy just did not live up to expectations with Jacksonville. Yeah, he did get a ring later with the Bucks. Saquon, as I was saying, 2018, and then this season you have Jeremiah Love in 2026.
The one that sticks out to me, and you kind of forget about it at the time, is the Dolphins drafting Ronnie Brown and Cadillac Williams in the same draft. That's why the Dolphins are the Dolphins right there. All right, we got one running back. Let's go get another one on top of it. It's just stupid. Uh, Running backs, I don't want to say they're a dime a dozen because they're not, the quality ones. But at the same time, you if you have more pressing needs like offense, defense, it's like the lines, I should say, you need to address those more, or even the secondary, than a luxury thing like a running back, because you can find someone who's serviceable.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of because you see backs, get drafted in a variety of areas, like Kenneth Walker, or he went in the first round, or Kyron Williams is playing very well. Yes, you have like Bijan Robinson, he was a high pick and he lived up to his potential, but too often, you can find one a variety of ways. Like David Montgomery, he's you know bounced around when he puts up some big stats, and it's like not enough juice from the squeeze. You know what I mean? So it's like hope for the best for Jeremiah Love. Obviously, when we start talking about, we focus sometimes here on fantasy football. That's going to be interesting to see where he gets taken in fantasy drafts. Maybe he's right now in RB8, RB10. He does have James Conner there, and one of our favorite vultures, Algier, is now there to take some of his goal line carries.
And that's why the pick made no sense to me, Lloyd. It's just the fact that they had Connor coming back. You have Algier now, who is that guy. He's a guy who's going to get some reps. So you have two guys that are capable right there, and you take Jeremiah Love. What are you doing with all these guys unless you plan on trading or moving somebody? I mean, that it just didn't seem like a pick that meshed. You know.
Yeah, and it may have been a reach, Kevin, but I think the guy that was taken after him, and I'm going to have my eye on him come fantasy football time, Carmel Tate from Ohio State. I mean, prototypical receiver. They're expecting him to come in there and be, right away, be a difference maker in the league. He goes number 4 to the Tennessee Titans. Now Cam Ward will have somebody to throw the ball to other than Wandale Robinson as long as he's upright.
Well, now we're going to get into the Cam Ward era to see, because I think everyone gets a mulligan on their first season, especially at quarterback. There's just so much information. Defenses just have their ears pinned back at you. You don't know, you know. So going into year two now, you give them a wide receiver, you give them some, other options. We got to see the maturation process of Cam Ward, and this is going to be a big sign of it.
Yeah, and then for the Saints with the eighth overall pick, I thought this was an interesting receiver from Arizona State, Jordan Tyson. He was overwhelmed, and that dude was crying. He was happy as could be that he was drafted. Now he goes to the Saints, and now you have him with Olave, and is Tyler Shook going to be the right guy to throw them the football? What do you think in terms of the Saints and a fit with Jordan Tyson?
Tyler Shook, he surprised the hell out of me the back end of last year. Olave had a good season. The fact that you got Kellen Moore now with a year under his belt, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to be world beaters or anything, but they're turning the corner a little bit. It's definitely a good sign. They're pushing things in the positive direction. I think getting Etienne there with an aging Kamara, mind you have two aging running backs now, but at the same time, they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, Mickey Loomis has been their general manager there for quite some time, and the Benson family has stuck by him. And I don't know how many chances they're going to give him, Kevin. He was at the hip with Sean Payton, and now Payton's been gone for quite some time, and we'll see how he's gelling with Kellen Moore. But another guy in terms of man crushes, and everybody was talking about them, and they're saying this team may have won the draft. They had 3 first-round picks on the first day. The New York Jets. And the player I want to talk about is tight end Kenyon Sadiq. They're talking about he's a prototypical tight end. Now you're going to be able to pair him with Taylor, and you'll have a 1-2 punch there in New York.
Do I think the Jets drafted some good football players? Yes, I do. That being said, a team that had 0 interceptions last year did not pick anybody in the secondary. They've got a bunch of offensive weapons for Geno Smith's second turn through the city. Yeah, I've got some questions there. I like Sadiq. I think he could be a player. I even like Copper, and it's just I think they could have went about it a different way. I think they reached. You already had Taylor at tight end, so why do you go get Bay or Sadiq rather? I should say right there. So it's just odd the way they did it, but that's the Jets.
Yeah, the Jets doing jet-like things there, Kevin. And the next player I want to talk about in terms of impact as a rookie, and this will help be a good segue into our Eagles conversation. Mekhi Lemon. Now, this was fun because you had some of your teams you love to hate. The Dallas Cowboys are involved. You have the Steelers involved. The Steelers jump ahead. The Eagles jump ahead of the Steelers via the Cowboys, and they select Mekhi Lemon with the 20th overall pick. He's now paired with Dontavian Wicks, Hollywood Brown, Devontae Smith, and this is the new look Eagles receiving core because on June 1st, the best unkept secret in football is A.J. Brown to the Patriots.
All right, let's start this off. Yeah, I got some problems here. Mekhi Lemon, he's small. Let's be honest. He's 5'9". The guy runs what, like a 4.6 or something. He's fast. He gets gets the yak, the yards after catch. I liked him falling to the Eagles right there. There's a reason he fell though, and from what I've read is he interviewed poorly. Like his attitude, other GMs were not fond of him personally. So he fell to the Eagles, which I'm cool with. It's all right. You got a little swag. It's all right. That kind of thing. But at the same time, the funniest part of it was he's on the phone with the Steelers, and we all saw it. It's being taped, and it's almost like he's talking to some girl who's kind of pretty. It's like, hey girl, how you doing? Philly's on the other line. Oh, I gotta go. Hey Philly, what's up? And it's like if you're the Steelers, apparently it happens all the time. But for the Steelers to be shown on TV like that was hilarious. I thought.
Yeah, yeah. And the crazy thing of all the teams is the Dallas Cowboys, Eagles trade with, and it's just like, wow. It's not like the old Buddy Ryan days when he wouldn't dare call Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones, make a deal. But this is the world we live in terms of the National Football League. We'll see how it turns out. Yeah, Lemon, he had 1,200 yards over that much last year. He played a lot out of slot. Explosive player, but as you say, transitioning to National Football League, from being a receiver, sometimes it's not as easy as you possibly think. Think of Eagles, Nelson Aguilar types. They didn't make that transition. We'll see how Lemon does. And I thought the same thing, Kevin, in terms of his glide that he has about take the sunglasses off, please. Okay, it's like come on. So we'll see how he does, but he's got to fit into a veteran locker room, and it's going to be up to Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts to kind of take him under their wing and see how he's going to perform. But looks like a good fit for them. And A.J. Brown, as I said, will be out of there. In the second round, the Eagles grabbed Eli Stowers, tight end from Vanderbilt. A lot of people are liking his athleticism. Tested very well at the combine, and they're thinking he can be, the next tight end after Goddard.
I even texted you when that pick was made because I think we talked about it maybe a couple weeks ago. It's like the Eagles looking forward. I was like, not Sadiq, but it's like something if they can get around like the second, third, fourth round, that kind of thing. And the fact that Eli fell to him right there, I thought that was a good pick. No matter what anybody says, Goddard's on a 1-year deal. Mind you, he's not a blocking tight end. And, what do the Eagles have, like 5 tight ends now under contract? They got a lot of guys in the tight end room, but at the same time, I like the pick, actually. I like them moving forward with that one.
Yeah, he seems like a good player. And the Eagles were watching the award shows because they took Mekhi Lemon, who won the Blifnikoff Award, and they took Eli Stowers at the number 54 pick in the second round. He was the John Mackey Award winner as the best tight end. So, trying to get quality guys. And yes, Stowers looks the part. Hopefully he'll be able to slide in there. Hopefully he's not a Jason Dunn. You've been around long enough to remember Jason Dunn, who the Eagles selected in the first round at East Carolina. Looked the part, but just couldn't get it done. So in the third round, the Eagles went for Markel Bell from Miami. I mean, this guy he's huge. He's like John Runyon type size, 6'9", 346 with a huge wingspan. Did you watch a lot of Miami, and can you tell me a little about Markel Bell?
First, I want to go back with Jason Dunn. Jason Dunn, L.J. Smith. Almost like if you made a tight end in a factory, that's who you would make. And then you got him on the field. It was like, oh, never mind. I'll tell you what, man. Was he 6'9", 346, I believe? Something like that?
Yes.
Every picture of him, his jersey is up around his shoulder pads. Like we got to get a bigger jersey in there to cover this man. He is a monster, and apparently I've seen a little bit of Miami this past year. He can play outside. He might be, it's one of those things you do have to plan for the future with that offensive line. And I'll start with a mountain of a man like that going forward. I like the pick.
Yeah, you're going to put Bell out there, and as long as he plays with leverage, we talked about King Dunlap a couple weeks ago, a guy I covered, and he just could not get that leverage because he was so tall. But Bell he looks like a way better athlete than Dunlap, and you'll slide him in probably at left tackle, and he can develop there, and then maybe be a swing guy. Maybe play some right tackle because obviously Lane Johnson coming back from that Liz Frank injury and age, or it's creeping in on him. So I did like that Markel Bell pick. Good value in the third round. In the fifth round, I was thinking of you, Kevin, right away. I was like, oh man, they're going back to North Dakota State for a quarterback. I was like, oh no, Carson Wentz Jr. You get Cole Payton in the fifth round, pick 178. 1-year starter at North Dakota State. He was left-handed, very athletic. So some people are saying, all right, maybe it's Taysom Hill type, but what are you thinking about Cole Payton, and what's that mean for the Eagles quarterback room?
It means there's too many guys in there. That's what it means. There's a lot of confusion. We don't know, to be honest, because Jalen's so quiet and secretive about things. Is Jalen the sensitive one? Is the other people sensitive? Like right now with the A.J. Jalen thing, all right, say we take A.J. out of the equation. So now is it Nick is sensitive, Jalen's sensitive? Like you're trying to figure that part out. So you add another quarterback, you throw a Taysom Hill situation in there, and the kid is fast, I think. I mean, I've heard him compared to like a Tim Tebow runner. Like he's big and thick, and he runs like a 4.6 or something like that. But they're like, what if they put him in on the tush push now? Is Jalen going to be mad because he's out of the plays on the tush push? And it was like they're comparing when Vic came over and McNabb would have to come out and everything else. So It's more drama, man. It's so much more drama. But if I'm the Eagles right now, and I wait till possibly maybe somebody gets an injury, because you got the Red Rocket over there, Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. I forgot about him. You sit there. It's like Tanner McKee. You can move right now. I would move Tanner McKee and see what you can do. But yeah, it's probably not going to go well. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, and in terms of Tanner McKee, a lot of people were texting me saying, "Lloyd, is he going to get traded for?" I really think, okay, maybe like a fifth rounder next year at the best. He just has not proven it on the field. Um, he's probably going to be the odd man out. He's on the last year of his contract, so the Philadelphia Eagles probably going another direction. You have Jalen Hurts, who's not going anywhere, making 51 to 52 million dollars a year. Andy Dalton, as you said, signed coming over from Carolina Panthers, and then Cole Payton will probably be their developmental guy. So we'll see where Tanner McKee lands for the Philadelphia Eagles. But interesting situation bringing him in the door. And it's funny we brought up that when they signed Michael Vick, because I covered that team, I was around it a lot. Forget the circus of him coming back to National Football League. McNabb did not want to come off the field, and every time they ran those gadget plays with Vic, they just did not work.
No, they were horrible because the other defense knew what was coming. It's like Vic's going to touch the ball here. So the fact that like every play seemed to just blow up in the Eagles' face. So yeah, and let's be honest, we all know the wide receiver position in football is the most prima donna-ish, kind of position. I tell you what, you put a quarterback in there with another little bit of competition in a room, oh, that gets evened out real quick. The quarterbacks are just like that. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and there's no love lost. I always love around draft time, and it makes me think of 2005 draft. I'm sitting up there, Aaron Rodgers waiting. He finally gets picked, but then there's Brett Favre swallowed a turd. He's like, I'm not here to teach anybody or coach him up. You have the veteran, and then you got the young guy coming to the door. Talk about that situation and how much fun it is to watch.
I tell you one thing that always sticks out in my head because once again we've seen the Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, kind of thing. I remember when Aikman and Steve Walsh were in there with Dallas, that kind of deal. I was watching an interview one time, or maybe it was some ESPN Roy Firestone piece. That's how far back I'm going. But it was Steve DeBerg, who is a classic backup quarterback, had some time. He was taught by Roger Staubach when he was with the Dallas Cowboys. Roger Staubach, had all his, claim to fame, and he taught Steve DeBerg how to play quarterback position. So he went there everywhere he went. When San Francisco, he had Joe Montana. He taught Joe Montana. When I think he was in Miami for a minute, I don't know if he was like around the Marino time or before or just after. But I remember the one thing he said was when he went to Denver and they drafted John Elway. John Elway said, "I don't need your help." And Steve DeBerg was just like put off by it. But yeah, it all depends on how you make it for him. If you transition to like a guy coming in, or you sit there and just shut him out because you're that worried about your job. It's all about how you handle it as a man, I guess.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions immediately everybody went to in terms of Fernando Mendoza being number one overall pick. They brought in Kirk Cousins to kind of teach him and be the good guy in the locker room, and Cousins is all for it. Of course, he's probably the highest paid backup and everything. He's got all that money already in the bank, and he's Mr. Nice Guy. He drinks milk and he drives his family his original minivan still, and so it's. I think he's the type of guy you want to mentor Mendoza. And when do you think Mendoza is going to start in the National Football League?
I think we talked about it last week also. I'll be shocked if, I mean, it depends how, he progresses through training camp and everything. But the Raiders want to sell that franchise. If he's ready to go week one, I think he goes in week one rather. But in my side, what I would do what Andy Reid did with Dougie P and McNabb. Have him Cousins play about a month and a half, and then get Mendoza in. Let him get acclimated to being in the NFL life and everything else. But I'd be shocked if he doesn't play in week one.
Yeah, I agree with you that they have some pieces in terms of Genti and Bowers, but their offensive line has always been a work, work in progress. They're bringing Linderbaum in there, and they have Colton Miller, former first rounder, but they still have some work doing that offensive line. And why put Mendoza out there to get beat up? Because we've seen, Caleb Williams, we saw Ward. They were the most sacked quarterbacks in the National Football League, and everybody always talks about David Carr seeing ghosts because he was the most sacked quarterback ever in his first season for the Texans. So Mendoza, interesting kid. I wanted to get your take on him. We talked about, is he Joey Harrington, Mr. Nice Guy, or is he got that killer instinct? Because, Matt Ryan would look, like a Mr. Nice Guy, but he actually could play on the field. But I don't know. He was like, well, I would have became a stockbroker if they hadn't given me an opportunity. And you know, he's very praiseworthy. He's saying all the right things. And is he too nice, though, Kevin?
Yeah, at this point, it seems like he does. Like, if it was my team, I'd like, you want to see a little bit of that dog in him, that competitive spirit and everything else. At the same time, it's 2026. These guys are trained like politicians, man. They just are around reporters all the time, deflecting questions, or they're their own PR team at this point, if they don't have one already. So he's just saying the right things, and you'll see when camp starts and you get those first, team practices, the combined practice and all that, because we don't really play, training camp games anymore. So it's just like we'll see that, but it's like he's like he's running for office right now. I'll put it that way.
That's a good analogy there, Kevin. And we'll see how he does. But he's saying all the right things, and he's, Mr. Nice Guy. But he's got to perform on the field, just like all these rookies. They got to come to camp humble. They have to come in there ready to learn and ready to work. So we'll see how it turns out. Getting to back to the Eagles picks, uh, go to round 7. They got a safety, Cole Wisniewski. He's from Texas Tech. Makuba's supposed to start, but then you have Epps, you have Carter. Does Wisniewski have a shot to come in there and take care of Blankenship's spot?
Well, he's built kind of like a linebacker, to be honest, So it's like I don't know. I think at that point, when you get to in that part in the draft, you're starting to. It's like scratch off tickets. Can he play special teams? That kind of thing. What kind of value you're going to get. Hopefully, you can develop him into a player. But at that point, you're just looking at raw talent almost that you can frame for your own.
Yeah, I agree. They're just taking a flyer on him. And speaking of taking a flyer, and they did a big deal about this, Kevin. And I think the NFL had something to do with it because they didn't want this guy sitting in the green room any longer. And the Eagles said, all right, we'll take him. But they made a big deal out of the International Pathway Player Program. And UR Bernard, he's a defensive tackle. He's from Nigeria. I mean, he tested off the charts, but how many times have we seen a great athlete try to play football, and this is just a different game. So what are we thinking in terms of Bernard in this story here?
He's my favorite player in the draft, Lloyd. That guy's a specimen. I've never looked at a man so hard in my life. I'm sitting there, I'm reading all this stuff. What is he like? 306, 6'4"? Is he 6'4"?
He's 6'4", 306. He runs a
4'6", 40.
Yes, he vertical jumped 40 inches, broad jumped 11 feet. This is all well and good. This ain't no track meet. You know what I mean? But everybody's drooling, watching this guy. But is he, like we were talking about Jason Dunn earlier? Does he look the part, but can he play football?
He has a 36-inch bicep. I never cared about that in an NFL player until they told me about it. Then I had to look. This guy is a monster. They got lightning in a bottle with Jordan Mailata. I think you are right, though. I was like, they don't want this guy in the green room. Someone's got to draft him, because it's just awkward. At the same time, the 7th-round pick, scratch-off ticket. Let's take a chance at it. I mean, will he ever play? Probably not for 2 to 3 years if he plays at all. But at the same time, it's just like, man, this guy's a monster. Good Lord. Yeah, put him out there. See what he can do.
Yeah, and the thing is, it raw technique. I mean, they can put him out there. I mean, defensive tackle, that was tough. Those guys got specific skills. They got to know how to get off of blocks. And a lot of times, these players, they put them at like a fullback or on the line, like Malata, and then have him coached up for a couple of years. But he's going to learn, and Jalen Card will be on the line with him, and we'll see how he acclimates to the game. And it was a great story, though. But as you said, everybody was just talking about his measurables and how he pulled off another one. So we'll see if he's able to live up to that. Let's talk about head scratcher. We'll go back there. Nate's team. The Buffalo Bills, I mean, he keeps texting me. He's like, what are they doing? They traded out of the first round 3 times. And then, yes, later on they got this receiver, Skylar Bell, who everybody's talking about. It could be a potential player. But it was just crazy to me how they just kept trading back, Kevin.
Well, I think you need to cut Nate's phone minutes first of all, because he's texting some bad stuff. It's like they are all bad decisions the Buffalo Bills are doing. That's a team that's in win now mode as well. And it's like, what are you doing? I don't think they're doing well with their draft right now at all. I think they have a short window of time, as we've talked about before. Like we said, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, you got this window closing because you got these young guys coming up behind you. And if you're Buffalo, it's like you have to get to a Super Bowl at some point, don't you? So, I don't like what they did with the draft at all.
Yeah, it was interesting. Brandon Beane survived, the general manager. He survived there. But, McDermott out the door, and the rest of his staff, and then Brady's taking over. So we'll see how this works out. But as you said, they should be looking at win now mood. And DJ Moore, I just don't know if he's enough coming over, and we'll see how that roster comes together. A team everybody's saying, like I said, I don't give grades, but everybody's like, oh man, they did a great job. The Cleveland Browns. I mean, can we really salute them with their history? But they have some players. They got Fano from Utah at number 9. Casey Concepcion, who everybody was talking about, from Texas A&M at number 24. And they went back to receiver again with Denzel Boston at number 39 in the second round. And then a player a lot of people talked about gadget quarterbacks maybe. Taylon Green from Arkansas in the 7th round. They grabbed him. But why did they do that? I mean, don't they have enough quarterbacks, Kevin?
Once again, the Browns got a Brown sometimes. It's like, I do like the fact they added the wide receivers. The Boston dropping was a head scratcher for me, to be honest. The guy's 6'4" in a draft class of small wide receivers, that he fell like that. Conception we talked about last week, I kind of liked a little bit maybe for the Eagles if he fell that far, but he didn't. He went earlier. So they added some pieces, but the question I bring always is like, who's throwing him the ball? Who's getting the ball? Do I think they've upgraded their skill set? Yeah, but once again, unless quarterback, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and Fano, they need to protect their quarterback, so he's coming in there, and that offensive line has been changing the last couple of seasons. It was one of their strengths a couple of years ago, Wyatt Teller and some of those other guys, but now they've had some holes there. So Fano's trying to come in there, big hulking guy, first offensive lineman off the board. They're hoping that he can help out there. But I think Andrew Barry, the general manager there, he did a nice job, but he is on a hot seat, and Monken's coming in. And as you said, yeah, they took a flyer in the 7th round with Taylor Green, another guy who had all the measurables and everything, maybe using some gadget stuff. But they really didn't need another quarterback. And I still think Watson's going to get the first reps, and then we'll see from there. But another team everybody's talking about, and we talked about their first pick, the Dallas Cowboys. I know you don't like talking about them, but they got Caleb Downs in the first round. They also got in the first round at 23 Malachi Lawrence. He's from Central Florida, a pass rusher. They got Drew Shelton from my area. He's from Downingtown. He also played for Penn State. They got him in the 4th round. And then they got a corner, Devin Moore from Florida, who kind of fell to them at 114. So, and they traded for San Francisco linebacker D. Winters. So are the Dallas Cowboys going to come up, and should Eagles fans be watching them?
As much as it pains me to say this, Lloyd, Dallas Cowboys had a hell of a draft. The fact they got Caleb Downs, was it pick 11, I believe?
Yes.
He fell down to. And then you get Malachi Lawrence. I mean, their problems were on the defensive side of the ball. We all know that. So the fact is, I think, just off the top of my head, I want to say like 4 of the first 5 picks, 4 of the first 6 picks were defensive side of the ball. So they addressed what they needed to address. If I'm Dallas, I feel good walking away from that. Just what I've did to make my team better.
Yeah, and the Cowboys, they seem to have a good draft. I bet Steven was doing a lot of the picking there, and Dad was just kind of there ceremonially, and we'll see how they um, challenge in this division. But I think it's going to be very competitive in the NFC East coming up, and as I said, the Philadelphia Eagles were repeat champions last year for the first time in like 20 years, but now you have Washington. I thought is building again, and hoping Jane Daniels comes back healthy. You have Dallas Cowboys, and the other team everybody was talking about from the first round. I mean, the New York Football Giants. I mean, they were another one. There's no place to go but up for them. But you bring in Arvell Reese and Francis Mayaga at number 10 for the offensive line. How do you feel about the Giants? And is everybody right saying Big Blue had a great draft?
I thought they had a great draft too. That's the thing. They added an offensive lineman. I mean, Reese was not a need. It wasn't their biggest need at that pick. But the fact is, Arvell Reese falls to you. It's like, you know what? I'm going to make this work. I'm going to see what I can do with this, Because you had a Carter, you already had Burns there. I mean, their defense is already stout. So, yeah, I think Harbaugh's lining up here. His key is going to be to have these offensive guys, the young guys, be healthy for a whole season.
Yeah, and they have Malik Neighbors coming back from injury, so that's a big thing. They're obviously going to protect their quarterback with bringing in Francis Mayaga coming from Miami. They're going to slide him in there in the offensive line. But then they also got Colton Hood, who is a very good corner. They brought him in there. Malachi Fields as a receiver. He's a big body receiver. They'll add him to the mix. We'll see how he does. They also got a linebacker in the sixth round that I liked, Jack Kelly. So, I thought, yeah, they did a nice job. But in New York, as we know, those teams were very bad last year. I think they won 7 games between those two teams, something like that. So there's nowhere to go but up. Um, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they were sitting there. They were the hosts. They had all the old Steelers out there waving at terrible towels. Terry Bradshaw, the bus, Lynn Swan. I mean, it could go on and on. They drafted, and I want to get your take on this, Drew Allard. They took him in the third round. Is that something they did because they think Aaron Rodgers isn't coming back?
Well, I'll tell you what, if you're waiting on Drew Aller to be your starting quarterback, your season's over already. If you're waiting on Aaron Rodgers to come back and be your quarterback, your season's over already. Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, just inject anyone that they have right now, your season's over already. I think Aller with a third pick, guy coming off a major injury like that, and I think it's a stretch, to be honest. I think Pittsburgh had a bad draft. I think they have an aging defense. And yeah, no, I don't think it was a good look for the home drafting team at all.
Yeah, I agree that up and down draft for them, and then Omar Khan, their GM, he's going to have to wipe egg off his face because there's a rule you're not supposed to be on the phone with somebody dropping, and the Eagles were on the phone too, as you said, and he broke some kind of rule there, so there may be some decent discipline coming, and that whole Rodgers thing is just a mess. And they had Mike Tomlin introduced on NBC coming over in terms of joining their Sunday Night Football staff. And he said, yeah, if he had to bet on it, he thinks that Rodgers is going to re-sign with them. But what are they doing allowing a 42-year-old quarterback to hold them hostage again?
I think they're proving that they don't know what's going on. I think they pushed Mike Tomlin out to the fact where Mike Tomlin's like, I'm not sitting here waiting for you guys to do this year after year. I went through it last year. I'm not doing it again this year because he knows what's going on in these meetings. Well, if we get Aaron Rodgers to come back for one more year, and after that playoff game, Mike Tomlin's like, hell no, I'm out. And what is the one thing a coach seems to always do after they step away from a team? I'm going to go on one of these NFL broadcasts for a year and figure things out, And it's like sometimes they stay, sometimes they come back. But Mike Tomlin, I guarantee you, in his inner circle of friends, is rooting for them to be under 500. I know he is.
Yeah, after 20 some years there, you know the welcome was worn out, and he stepped away. He decided kind of enough was enough, and we'll see how it goes. And he will have his eye on that team. He's talking about respect and all that stuff. Bop, bop, bop. But they're in a tough division, and they got some aging guys like Cam Hayward, and obviously if Rodgers comes back, they're going to be one of the older rosters. And yeah, I think he'll have his eye on. Say, see, told you so. If McCarthy can't get to that winning mark and keep that team where they want to be, another team kind of on a hot seat, and everybody's talking about their coach Todd Bowles is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They stepped up at number 15 and drafted Reuben Bain, who we had talked about last week, had some legal stuff going on, shorter arms. Was that a good pick for them grabbing Bain at
at
15?
15.
Nah, I don't think it was, to be honest. The short arms thing is a real thing because that's also with Spano, who got drafted, the offensive lineman. They're talking about his arm's length, that kind of thing, where you're going to be able to put him. So I don't buy a lot of things. Like, I don't care how long a guy of his jump, his vertical jump, his broad jump. I don't care about that crap. I tell you what, though, you give me some stubby arms like a Tyrannosaurus Rex, then you got my, my eyes on this. So yeah, I think arm's length is a big thing.
Yeah, and I think Todd Bowles is going to have to find right ways to use him, put him in a mix. Out there with Vita Vey and Winfield Jr. and they do have some playmakers on defense. They brought in as well they brought in Josiah Trotter. Jeremiah Trotter has another son in the National Football League. They brought him in, I think, in the third round. What are you thinking of him? And they also grabbed Keontae Scott for their secondary. So overall, where do you see Tampa going into the season?
Once again, so happy for Jeremiah Trotter, Axeman. His son's playing in the NFL, and once again, I don't try to get too deep, but with his wife passing not too long ago and all that, for him to step up for his children and all that, that's awesome. Just to share that moment with him. That being said, though, also Tampa's going in that defensive direction again. I don't know if they're just reverting back to what won them a Super Bowl, back pre-Brady days, I should say. Offense, it seems like they're kind of set with what they have, and with the running back system right now, the room's gotten a little lighter. So, I mean, I don't know what they're actually thinking. Baker Mayfield, also another year older. They're going to be an interesting team to watch, see which way they turn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there definitely are, and we know that division. 8 and 9 can win that division. Hopefully not again. Hopefully a team steps forward, but a very bunched at the top, and they could jump forward. So I thought adding him to the mix along with Trotter is our building blocks that Jason Light brought in, and we'll see how that goes. Everybody's talking about Kansas City. There's varying, you know, there's support on some side. There's also finger waggling on others. Kansas City moved up to the number 6 spot to draft Delaney Mansour coming out of LSU, which is DBU. I thought he was a good pick. They needed to have corners because we talked about Watson and McDuffie leaving.
They had to get a cornerback. They had to. It was a pressing need. I mean, once again, we've talked about before. Andy Reid loves defensive line, offensive line, and just fill that in. But they had to do that, whether it's the right pick or the wrong pick. I thought the kid was good myself, to be honest, but it was a necessary pick. I'll say that much.
Yeah, and then they're going to, and Spagnuolo will slide Delaney in there. And they also got Peter Woods, a D tackle that I like from Clemson at number 29. So there's 2 first rounders. Later on, they got Edge R. Mason Thomas. The R stands for nothing. He told everybody. He's from Oklahoma. He's an edge. Slide him in there. They also got another running back in Emmett Johnson from Nebraska that was there for a number of years, explosive guy. And they took Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. They took him in the 7th round. So overall, what do you think of Andy Reid and Brett Veach's draft?
The beginning part I kind of liked. 2 points of interest. Peter Woods, after taxes, I guess his first contract or something's gonna be like $2.4 million. He already spent $200,000 of it buying Maseratis for his sister and his mother. So it's like,
Oh,
all right, buddy, slow down, slow down with the money. Nussmeier is the other one because I work with somebody who's a Kansas City Chiefs fan. Oh, we got Nussmeier, and I was like, get the hell out of here with Nussmeier. If Nussmeier's your quarterback, dude, you're in bad shape right now. So yeah, Nussmeier's another one of those cats who can beat it. But I kind of like what they did with the first 2 picks, as long as Woods, has his head in the game.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they got my guy Mahomes coming back from the ACL injury, but they got Justin Fields there, man. So Nussmeier is not going to see the field, and oh man, so we'll see how that goes. Uh, how about the? I'm looking at the teams. I'm just trying to see. All right, who there weren't a lot of juicy players, and storylines. It was like, all right, it was like business as usual. Everybody kind of filling out their dance card. Is there a team that I'm missing or somebody you thought did well, Kevin, or a player you want to highlight that came forward?
I was disappointed for the most part. There was I forget the draft pick. The whole family dressed up rather in all white kind of thing. Like they got into it a little because I like seeing the homes. I like seeing people in their homes with their family and everyone. There was one offensive lineman. They had like the fold out chairs. They did it real like on the cheap kind of thing. It was kind of cool. The offensive lineman. And there was the one, I still forget who the player was. The mom sitting between the girlfriend and the son.
Yeah.
And she kept trying to get in there, and mom's like, no, 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 you go right over there. There's always that mom that's like pushes away. She knows it's just a college girlfriend. So other than that, though, team wise, I think the NFC East did well. I mean, I'm not even throwing Washington in the mix, and it's not even my Eagles bias on this. I think the Giants did well. I think Dallas did well. I think the Eagles did well. Going back to the other divisions, I think San Francisco didn't do well. I thought they were bad. I thought Arizona reached. I thought the Rams had a bad draft. Although I like Seattle picking up Price. It's kind of like you go through the divisions that kind of way. So I think the Raiders had a decent draft, but once again, it's going to take them 2 to 3 years to see what they got. So I think it's the draft more to judge is the teams that are trying to win now and how they did. And I don't know. We still got to look and dig it up a little bit.
Yeah, and as the draft went along, some of the teams are making trades. Like the Philadelphia Eagles, they made a trade, and I wanted to get your uh, what you thought of this. They traded picks. Uh, they really want to get some pass rushers in here. Jonathan Grenard, they trade him for the Minnesota Vikings, kind of an undersized guy. Reminds me a lot of Nolan Smith, who they already have. Is he going to slide in there? I mean, what are you thinking in terms of Jonathan Grenard coming over to the Philadelphia Eagles in a trade from Minnesota? I think they got him for 2 draft picks.
Yeah, was it like two third round picks, I believe, something like that. He had 2 seasons in a row of at least 12 sacks, but last year I think he had like 3 or 4 or something like that. So they're kind of getting him on the cheap after a bad season. The Eagles got to do something to get some pressure. I mean, that was a problem. They couldn't get pressure on the quarterback last year. So did they give up maybe too much for him in his contract? Maybe, but it's like desperate times call for desperate measures. So I think Howie had to do something there, for better or worse.
Yeah, and you had Grenard traded, but there are a lot of other guys we thought, okay, they may have some trade value, and they didn't move. So teams are holding on to their picks, and some of these veterans are going to have to go to training camp and OTAs, and then their teams are going to make some moves. One in particular, John Lynch is like, my phone's on. Brandon Ayuk is available, and it seems like no one wants him. Does he end up just getting cut once they get to camp?
Absolutely. There's no part of Brandon Ayuk that I would want. He's injury prone, that's for sure. He's apparently not a pleasant guy in the clubhouse on top of that. So, that being said, if you were another team where you're like, oh, Simon, yeah, I want to trade for Brandon Ayuk, I want that mess over on my side. No, I'll take him after you cut him, and then I'll see if I want him or not.
Yeah, and then another player, he learned the hard way about presenting the wrong image in interviews and everything. He wasn't drafted. Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia, he was invited to the Heisman. He was a finalist. He was the first Heisman finalist not to be drafted at all. He's only like, why doesn't anybody? Well, maybe because you try to emulate Johnny Manziel, and a lot of people are like, no, no, no. But he did get an invite to the Ravens camp as a tryout player. So what do you think about Diego Pavia? Does he even have a shot with the Ravens?
First of all, that guy is a jackhole. Let's be honest. He's an idiot. And I know he's a college kid, but he's a college kid idiot. He should be surrounded by people that should know better. That being said, what is he like? 4'9", 5'2". I mean, this guy makes Kyler Murray stands over him. He's a small guy with that kind of attitude. No, he's not going to last. He's going to play in the UFL if he's lucky. Too much attitude, man. It's like, why would I want to bring this young punk onto my team? No, I don't like him. I think Baltimore is going to keep him for a week. He's going to do something stupid. They're going to tell him to, kick sand.
Yeah, it's this is an interview process, and that's why if you're not that top 32 guy, where they want you, and then you better be humble. You better say and do the right things. And he had videos of him, getting bottle service and all kinds of stuff when he was in New York City, and came back to bite him. So hopefully he'll go there and he'll have his opportunity. There are going to be a lot of undrafted free agents signed here. A guy I had my eye on was BYU receiver Chase Roberts. The Raiders brought him in. Jalon Daniels, the quarterback from Kansas, he's going to Tampa Bay. Dartmouth center Dolby Lemieux, who was a guy that was highly touted, he lasted, and he's going to Minnesota. Eric Hunter, a guy I scouted for the Black College Football Hall of Fame. He's from Morgan State. He was signed by Detroit. And everybody listening out there, my guy Cole Deary, who I brought up, local kid, he's a wrestler. He is going to go to camp with the New York Giants. He's a center out of TCU. So, but talk about the undrafted free agent process, Kevin, and can you find that diamond in the rough? I mean, how hard is that for those guys?
I think you can. I think it's possible. We've seen it happen before. Unfortunately, it's not in the player's hands. It's like it depends what team you go to, what need they have. And let's be honest, at the end of the day, it depends on injury. If some guy gets injured and you get your Wally Pip Lou Gehrig moment where you can step in there, and all of a sudden you flourish, it's like you can have all the talent in the world, but if you can't get on the field, it doesn't matter. So it depends a lot on geography, what zip code you land in, your ability to be able to play in this league or not. So I wish all those guys the best, though, man. To be able to play in the NFL and that's your dream your whole life, and they know they're in it for the long haul, for all what they're going to have to go through, all the best to them.
Yeah, and I always remember players like Rod Smith, who was a great receiver for the Broncos, and he wasn't drafted. He went in there and went to work, and you see that happen a lot of times. A guy like Victor Cruz, it was the same kind of way with the Giants. He broke out. And, if you go to camp, make some plays, I think a lot of times they'll give offensive linemen some time to develop. A guy who, they may put him on a practice squad. Practice squads are now 16 players or so, but 90 guys will be going to training camp for all these teams. And you know, they're hoping they're the guy to be that Kurt Warner, uh, as I said, Mr. Irrelevant. He was University of Buffalo linebacker. He'll have his day in the sun, and we know from Brock Purdy. I mean, he was drafted late. He did. Nakua, he was a fifth round pick. Tom Brady, sixth round pick. So it can happen, and that's where these GMs are making their money, and whether a guy wants to stick around or not. Now, in terms of GMs, and it's the league's kept secret. I mean, is the AJ Brown trade, is that all consummated with this lemon pick? And you know, he's on Instagram and all these things with a number 11 jersey. I know he's probably going to say it's an Edelman jersey, a Patriots jersey. But what's going on with the Eagles and AJ Brown?
I tell you what, New England better watch themselves because there might be some investigations after all this is said and done. And it's like Mike Vrabel's got enough on his plate right now that we don't really need to add, some kind of collusion thing going on. So, yeah, it's happening. It's a done deal. I mean, there's a reason why the Eagles have brought in these C-level, B-level wide receivers in free agency. And then, of course, you draft Mekhi Lemon with your first pick. I mean, it's a done deal. The thing that Eagles, though, have to look at is you're very small at wide receiver right now. You got Devontae Smith, you got Mekhi Lemon. You don't have some big wide receivers that can take some hits. So, I mean, and you got two tight ends that really aren't the best blockers in the world right now either. So their offensive scheme is going to be kind of interesting.
It is, and you had this week. Stoutland just came out just the other day, and he started talking in terms of, well, we ran the wrong plays, and it wasn't my fault. He basically alluding to your guy Kevin Matullo. I mean, it. So with new offensive coordinator Sean Mannion coming in the door, how much pressure is on him to get it done? And don't forget the head coach, Nick Sirianni, because he's over all this.
First of all, my favorite job ever would be like, yeah, you're going to replace Kevin Patullo at offensive coordinator. Sign me up. I got this. The bar set real low here. Okay, I got you on this one. This year is about Jalen and Nick. You take AJ Brown out of the equation. All right, it's one of you two now. It's almost like you're playing the game of Clue, trying to figure out who it is. All right, Professor Plum's out. Colonel Mustard's in. It's like, all right, we're down to Jalen and Nick. Patullo's out. AJ's gone. It's one of you two. So we're gonna sit there and figure it out at some point this year.
Yeah, I agree with you that everything in the Eagles, everybody's pointing at them saying, okay, is this team for real? And you look at the power rankings, they got the Eagles around number 10, because a lot of teams have gotten better, particularly in their division, and they've had some defections on their team, whether it's retirement, guys like Brandon Graham, and they have not replaced Sweat, who left, and Milton Williams, who left, and now they're talking about Blankenship's gone, but you know, it's going to be interesting with this team if they can stay together, if they can stay healthy. The Philadelphia Eagles, particularly on the offensive line, I think that's why they've drafted some linemen the last couple drafts. They're going to try to slide in, but obviously everybody's going to talk about the quarterback and all this receiver drama. I'm really interested in seeing as well about Saquon Barkley. Was last year an aberration, or was 2024, the height? He had that rushing record, and then he also won a Super Bowl, which you hardly ever see. So lots going on with the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll follow them as they move into OTAs. Kevin, before we get off the air, how are the Flyers doing?
Flyers tied it up at 2, down 3-2 going into the third period. Lastly, I want to put out, Lloyd, is Brandon Graham really retired? Are we going to see him at some point next year? To be determined.
It is, and I heard he's going to be probably doing some stuff for a local TV station, and he's writing children's books and stuff. But at his age, yeah, if they gave him some more money, he may do the Jason Peters type situation, come back and say, sure, I'll get another accrued year. So got to keep an eye on that. But as I said, another great week here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football on 1029 The Game, Coastal Sports Digital Network. We had a fun time talking draft, and now everybody has their rosters, and we'll see who's going to continue winning in the offseason. But it really doesn't matter till the pads get put on, Kevin, in late July moving into training camp.
There's no doubt about that. It's like we've done all the speculation now. We've sat there, we figured out, the draft, and it's like, once again, just pointing out there, ESPN Fantasy Football Draft, you can do a mock draft now to see how you can line your team up. I am not happy with my numbers yet. So that being said, though, I mean, it gets the fan more involved now. Now you know who's with who. There's no more speculation on this. There's going to be some free agency moves, of course. But it's like, we're lining up, man. We're going into May, and next thing you got 4 months, and we're about ready to go.
Yeah, and I think fans are, as I said, they can't get enough football. So, maybe they'll quell themselves with indoor football and UFL, something to hold them over until training camp starts. But the players will be there, and they'll all start working out, no pads, but they'll start getting their playbooks, the rookies, and hopefully there won't be any holdouts or anything like that. But great week here on Lloyd Vance Insider Football, and appreciate Duncan doing a great job behind the glass. Kevin joining me another week, and we'll be back next week. There's always something to talk about around the National Football League.